Hey everyone, I recently made a free and open source tool for scheduling HTTP cron jobs called cron-env. And in this video, I want to share with you why I built this, its benefits and use cases, why you may want to use it, and also I will show you the example configuration and deployment. So if you have ever needed to schedule API calls or HTTP requests without complex configuration, this tool is going to make your life a lot easier. And first, I want to explain to you why I built this tool. So in nearly every project that I worked on, I needed some kind of a way to schedule recurring tasks or API calls. Whether it was, for example, generating reports, database backups, sending email on specific schedule or report on a specific schedule, background cleanups and stuff like this. And I kept writing the same cron job configuration over and over again in every project or code base that I needed the cron jobs in. And usually there are at least two ways to configure cron jobs for your projects. So let's quickly look at those two methods. So let's say we have a network. On this network we have server or a VPS, and inside the server we have an app or a code base. And let's say that we want to add cron jobs to our app. For example, for generating reports or sending emails on specific schedule. So what do we usually do? We write a cron job configuration inside our code base. So for Node.js, for example, you would use something like node-cron. This is a utility that you can use to schedule it right inside the Node.js project. Also, you can do it on the server level. You usually use something like a cron tab for this, and but for that, you will need a SSH connection and an actual VPS, so virtual private server. Those methods work fine, but let's say that now we have a different code base. In this case, like for example, we have an app that has configured cron jobs, and now let's say that we have a second app on the same server. So now what we need to do is write the same cron job configuration for this second app. Right? This is not ideal. You basically repeat the same code in different code bases. This is not perfect. This can work, but what do we have? The third one, the first one, you get it. So let's say we use it actually not in the app and code base level, but on the server level. So via something like a cron tab on the VPS. But then what if we have a different client that requires a separate server or a VPS? Then we will also have to configure cron tab on this second server, right? So this is, again, it will work, but once you have a few of those, it's not ideal and it can become tedious to configure those. So instead of duplicating code across projects, I decided to build a reusable, configurable, easy to use cron job scheduler that works out of the box while keeping all cron jobs in one place. So what exactly is this cron-env tool that I built? It's basically a lightweight utility that lets you schedule HTTP requests using simple environment variables. And because it uses environment variables, it means that no code changes are needed when you want to add or modify scheduled tasks. Let me highlight some key features that make up cron-env. First, it's incredibly easy to configure. All jobs are defined using environment variables with a simple and consistent format. Second of all, it supports all common HTTP methods. So get, post, put, delete, batch, so you can decide which ones to use for your API endpoints. Also, it allows you to securely configure jobs with URL parameters or request body content, which is suitable for example, APIs that require authentication or specific payloads. Also, it's Docker friendly, meaning you can deploy it in seconds on any platform that supports containers. And finally, it's completely open source, available on GitHub under MIT license, so you can use it freely in your projects and even contribute improvements. Now let's talk about when you might want to use cron-env. The first use case is, let's say that you have a web application that hosted on a platform that doesn't give you SSH access to set up traditional cron jobs with cron tab, or you just don't want to use SSH for configuring cron jobs. With cron-env, you can simply expose an API endpoint in your app and schedule calls to this API endpoint. Another use case may be that you're managing multiple projects and you're tired of implementing the same cron job logic over and over again. Cron-env can centralize this logic, keeping your project code bases cleaner. And another use case is that you can also schedule tasks on an internal network without exposing your endpoints publicly. So cron-env can exist on the same network as the server that you're making requests to. These are just a few examples of how you can use this tool. In short, it's useful whenever you need to schedule HTTP requests as a cron job. And now let me show you how to configure and how to use this cron-env tool. As I mentioned, it's open source on GitHub, so feel free to check it on GitHub. Of course, I would really appreciate the star on this repo, and of course you can clone it. So we need to take a look at the README. There is a whole documentation of how to use it, how to configure it. And what we're interested in is this table. So as you can see, there are a few environment variables that we need to configure. It's time zone, run and start, request timeout, and job on the list. So as you can see, only the job list is actually required. The rest are optional parameters that you can pass to this tool. So we're actually interested in job configuration. So how we define each job. What do we have here? So first of all, we wrap it in double quotes for proper formatting. And here we have schedule, method, URL, and key value, so prop and value. Let's just copy this. And let's also clone the repo. I have already done this. Basically, what we need to do is just create a .env file in the root directory. Here's, of course, the env example. I'm just going to copy it here. And since, as I mentioned, those are optional variables, let's just not set them for now. Let's just focus on the list of jobs that we want to configure. So as mentioned, let's just take a look at the job configuration again. I'm just going to copy it. So first we need to decide the schedule. There are a lot of tools of how to configure cron jobs schedule. This is something that I use, for example, cron tab guru. Here you can basically check if configuration that you have set up is what you think it is. So for example, let's just say that we want to have all stars, which is just run it every minute. I'm just going to copy the configuration here to remember what it is. Schedule is again just 5 stars, which is every minute. And the separator between the configurations is a double colon. So we paste that in here. We also need to choose the method, the HTTP method to be specific. So get, post, or anything else. Since let's say that we want to pass the parameters, we can only use post for this, like not the get method for this. So let's do the post, for example. And now let's choose what URL we want to hit. For this, I just suggest for testing purposes that you use something like mock API endpoints. So there are a few services that you can use. For example, mockbin.io or webhook.site. Let's just use mockbin. So this is their website. Again, it's free, so you can just create a bin for free and test it out. So let's do exactly that. And they give us the URL that we can hit now. And it will list what requests are being sent to this URL of mockbin.io. So we have again, the URL of the configuration. And since we're using the post request, we can also send some property and values. So for the testing purposes, let's just say hello equals world. And that's it. Again, we can have multiple properties here, but let's for the test have it just like this. So now I open the console and run npm run dev because we're just testing out, and let's see what we have in the console. So it will run the index.ts. So again, you can test, you can check the code that runs on the hood. And basically what it says is that it's using UTC time zone because we didn't specify what time zone we want. It's using 60,000 millisecond timeout, and it found one job to be scheduled, which is correct. This is our configuration. And this is the job that is going to be scheduled. So it says us the schedule is as follows. It's going to make a post request to this URL with properties of this. And as you can see, it already fired this job. Again, it fires every minute, so every first second of each minute, basically. And now we can check the mog bin. Indeed, we have this request that was sent. Let's check it out. And again, it was a post request, which is according to our configuration. And it was a, so in the body of this request, we can see that, yes, indeed, these properties were sent as such JSON. Again, we can just play with it and add some other properties. Let's say that test equals 1, another property. And let's also restart the app. Again, now it says that it has multiple properties. Again, we can also change the method. We can change the schedule, but for testing, I'm just, as you can see, it already fired. That's why I'm doing it every minute. And so again, the mog bin is telling us that there was a second request with hello world and test equals 1. And also we can add some optional variables to this. So as I mentioned before, these are the optional ones: time zone, run on start, and request timeout. First of all, let's say we want to run these jobs immediately when the server starts. So immediately when we say npm run dev, or when the app is deployed, we want to run all the jobs that we have configured, no matter what their schedule is, just for the testing purposes. Request timeout, so how long will the server wait for the request to timeout? So again, the default is 1 minute. Let's just say it's 30 seconds, not 60 seconds. And the time zone, so in README I specified that they have to be configured according to IANA, I think it is, format. Yeah, IANA format. You can check it out on Wikipedia, the full list of those time zones. So again, it defaults to UTC, but let's use, for example, the New York time zone for this. I just pasted it in the wrong file. So again, in the env, we go to the time zone, we paste it in here. And now we have 2 jobs in American New York time zone, but again, we're gonna run them immediately on the server startup. And then it's going to run it on the specified schedule. So every minute for this job and every second minute for this job. And now that we have the jobs configured and optional variables configured as well, let's actually start the server. And again, since I have set run on start to true, they're going to fire immediately on the server startup. And we can actually now check the mog bin here. So you can see there is a get request and there is a post request here. So again, post runs with these parameters, get runs with no parameters, since it cannot have any parameters actually. So this is how it works. This is how you can quickly schedule these requests. So that was a quick demo of how you can configure this app and how to use it in development, just to test it out with mock APIs. But now let's talk about how to actually use it in production and how to deploy it. First of all, let's talk about how do you integrate this tool with your app. Let's say that you already, of course, have this app and have your code base, and you want to automate database backups. First of all, you write the backup logic in your existing code base, so just some kind of a function. And second of all, you can expose it via a secure API endpoint. So for example, you can request that in order to actually run this logic, this process, you can request some kind of a API secret or like auth secret, so that only when it matches, the job actually runs. And you expose this endpoint as, for example, /API/backup in your app. And you then deploy this tool that I created, the cron-env scheduler, and configure this cron job to be hitting this API endpoint that you have exposed with auth secret, passing it as props, or you can actually pass it also as URL parameters. So you can actually say here it's like auth equals something. So this will be in the request URL as well. So this is the second method of how you can secure your API endpoints, your functions. Now that you know how to integrate this tool with your app, let's talk about how do you deploy it. As I said before, this app is a Node.js app that also has a Dockerfile attached. So anywhere that you can run a Node.js app or containers, you can run this app. So here is a Dockerfile inside the project, and this whole app is a Node.js HTTP cron scheduler. So anywhere that supports either Docker or Node.js, you can run it. And to quickly show you how you can actually deploy this app to production, I'm going to use a service called Railway. So in the GitHub, in the README, you can actually see that there is a deploy on Railway in the deployment section. So you can just click on this link and follow what I'm going to show you here. So Railway is a platform where you can host your database, your app, a lot of other things. And they also have templates. And I have created a template that you can use. And once you click deploy now, it will deploy to your own Railway account, basically. So it's just a quick way to start and deploy your app. So first of all, you can see what's being deployed. So it's just a cron-env from GitHub. That's it. Of course, there is some documentation about what this template is, but we already know what it is. I showed the configuration steps. So now let's actually deploy this app to Railway. The only thing that we need to do is basically click deploy now, and we have the screen in which we only need to configure environment variables. And as I mentioned before, the only required variable is a list of jobs, and we need to have at least one job. Even the second one is optional. And of course, we have values for other variables, which is time zone, run and start, and request timeout. So let's just grab the one that we already had, which is this one. So again, it's exactly the same thing as we did in development. So we have a schedule, we have a method here, and we have the URL. That's the only thing that we need. And let's now click deploy. We now need to wait a bit for it to process the deployment. And now we have this screen in which it says that it's deploying. We can actually see the logs on what exactly is it doing right now. So again, it's using Docker image that there is in the repo, and it's actually already deployed. It took literally a few seconds here. Let's actually see the logs. Yeah, it took 4 seconds for it to deploy our app. And now let's see the deploy logs. So in here, we configured only one job. And yes, we can see indeed in the deploy logs that there is one job with this schedule, and it will do a GET request to this URL. And basically that's it. We have deployed our app to production using Railway. We can see the logs that it's indeed working and sending requests to the, in this case, API like mock service. There is just another request that was sent. And so that's it. I really recommend Railway for this because their management of environment variables in Railway is extremely easy. You just literally click through them here. You can view them. You can quickly edit them. This is an ideal platform to use this cron-env app. So again, the link is in the repo in README, and there is a deploy on Railway button that you can use. But of course, you can use any other platform or even your own VPS if you don't want those requests to leave the network. If you have existing app on your existing VPS, you can just use it and not even have those HTTP requests leave your network. And that's all about cron-env. Again, it's a really simple tool to schedule multiple HTTP requests as a cron job using environment variables, Node.js and node-cron under the hood, and you can deploy it using Docker basically anywhere. If you found this tool useful, please give it a star on GitHub and maybe share with others who might benefit from using it. Also, you might have already noticed that this repo was created from Node.js Starter, which is my other open source repo, which is just a configuration of Node.js with TypeScript. Very simple. It's just a simple way to start a new project. I hope you enjoyed this video and found cron-env tool useful. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.